Hello, welcome to another video. I do a deck guide on a deck that I've been playing in a TCG very recently, and yeah, the main two decks I sort of had built is Blurple and Aggro, and I like to call it a bit more of a hybrid build, of course, because I think for an aggro deck to have for a long game Zeus and for the Ursula is um, a bit not correct. So it has the options to be a bit more control, but to be honest with you, sometimes the Ursula and the long game Zeus and like shifting Rhino and singing long game Zeus kind of just enables you to be more of an aggro deck. And I think it's mainly because in Lorcana, we have a lot of singing, and singing is just very good removal for basically the cost of exerting a character. So I think all the aggro decks need to take advantage of that as well. So Amber Steel usually comes out on top, being the best one to play. So yeah, I've been playing this at Store Champs. I'm playing this locally as well. Playing this on Sims we don't mention. Playing it in testing, and yeah, it's just been very solid. The only things I guess I would maybe look at changing is I'd really like to put Tragic Beast in here. A lot of the other players who've been playing this, like Sky, and we saw Ed play it at Worlds, and Tragic Beast can really change matchups for you quite a bit. If you're into a mirror, and it gets down to the point where you're just in a standoff playing a Tragic Beast and drawing a card every turn. Hopefully they're resourced out on removal at that point. It's pretty cool. But besides that, I felt as a complete 4x list, it's just very tight. You have to also go as well into every day thinking like, if the deck just doesn't do what I want it to do on the day, you can't really be upset with that. The deck has a bit of a very short lifespan in matchups. You kind of need to know when to scoop and say that the day's over and the matchup's gone. You still do have the possibility to maybe top deck a dock and play it and go wide again and maybe find the missing 10 or 8 lore that you need if you're lucky. But majority of the games is like, I'm going to play this opening hand out. If it wins, that's great. If it doesn't win, then I've got to move on. And yeah, the first time I played it was the Content Creator Store Champs, and the only difference was I had two aerials in here instead of just 4xing out Lawrence. But now I've gone for 4x out Lawrence because it's just a very strong card. It threatens a lot of removal, and then into Rapunzel and into all of the non-steel decks, it can just do so much. So I kind of like the way that the list is run, but again, on that day, it just didn't do what I wanted to do, and I was kind of just not really happy to play the deck that doesn't do exactly what I wanted to do every day, because Blurple can kind of do that for me, and that's why I played Blurple. But I managed to pick it up again, and yeah, the wins when it's working is just almost demoralizing for your opponent. It's worse than like a green steel matchup, because it's just playing such powerful cards with just huge questers, rhinos, and insane body, singing removal at such a cheap cost. You can be stuck at 3 ink and you're still removing things with Zeus, and going wide with Lady as well. It's just amazing in general. And having a turn where you could play multiple daisies, or daisies and more 1-drops, or Smee in a day. There's just so many powerful lines just on power level. When it works, it's amazing, but it's not always consistent. So the games you lose, I wouldn't be so upset about that. But going into a few matchups that people have mentioned and maybe they would be struggling into, I'm just going to cover them now. So the first one, and the most popular matchup that I've seen, is green purple, and mainly the discard Diablo variant, not really the tempo one. And yeah, to be honest, I always thought it was a fairly rough matchup. I think that's because if you play against a tempo one that's playing kits, bouncing, using the fox effectively, it can be really rough, and then they just take your removal from your hand, so you'll have a bunch of singers that aren't doing anything with the 2-cost Ursula. But in general, if they are going all in on a Diablo shift, which I think in this matchup they pretty much shouldn't do, and you're able to get the removal off on it, you pretty much can win that game. They can't do discard against you to draw cards much, because you always have this option of, I'm just going to play all my cards out and play off the top. So they might end up doing Prince John and hoping to do like pull the lever or sudden chills, and discard you down so they can keep drawing cards, so you can resource them a bit there. They can still remove things with Bruno and like pull the lever into wrong lever. That's fine. But to be honest with you, hard playing something at wrong lever on a Daisy, it has to really be on a Rhino to get any real value out of that. Is pretty good. So yeah, out of the gate, they'll be playing 1-drops and stuff like that on board. They might play a 2-cost Ursula, but you should just be able to aggressively play out your board. Also, the ratios on their lists are always mad. Like, they're not playing 4x of the what's it called, the Elsa, so they end up not really be able to exert and remove piglets, and if it gets the quest and then they remove it, piglet's sort of done what he wanted it to do. So yeah, I've always found that matchup actually surprisingly good. But again, I think the deck is still fairly high roll. If you go into the matchup and you're just drawing one drop after one drop, it can be a bit rough and you can just end up losing that. You need to sort of get a very strong curve out of the gate into Doc or Rapunzel healing. And I thought I'd do a little mulligan for each one as well, just to sort of explain my point. And I think with this deck, the mulligan is probably the most important part of the deck. You kind of just win and lose based on how well your mulligan goes. So for this matchup, like I say, there are things I want to make sure that I remove with the Ursula. So we can open with a Daisy, questing aggressively, and they probably Fox Bounce to remove it. We might get 2, 4, maybe 6 lore out of that before they get an answer on the board. Ursula established, so we can sing any removal we get off the top, because drawing a Zeus and that just being a brick is kind of rough. And I keep Rhino because if we get the 1-drop for the shift, we're in an insanely powerful spot. So here, it's not too bad of a hand. Like I say, we can aggressively just curve out here, maybe ink one of these Rhinos, because sadly we're going to have to play a Daisy down. I guess versus this as well, we'd probably want to ink the Strength into, Pete, into another Rhino, into hopefully getting some Rapunzel value at some point if we're lucky. If not, we ink it and just keep going wide. But this is not maybe the best hand, but it's still, I think, fairly functional. So we'll go for another one here. I think as well, it's best if you have a lot of 1-drops and the hand is fairly good, you might want to end up just keeping the hand. And it's not uncommon for this deck for you just to do basically a full keep. It happens quite often for me. So here, I think I would go something like this if this was on the play, especially. I'd probably wanting to look for a way to sing removal from this Cindy just to get everything off their board. And there, it's not ending up being a totally bad hand, I think. We think the Rhino play the Cinderella. They'll probably give us a Let the Storm target, maybe the purple Diablo. Draw a couple more cards, play this down. If they don't Ursula check us, we get to sing Zeus on anything. And hopefully we end up just getting more goons to throw on the board and quest with. So it's important, I'd say, to get the singer set up, because top decking some of these songs and not having a singer set up is pretty rough. And there isn't that many matchups, in my opinion, where you shift Rhino on 2 and that's, just won you the game. I think into red-blue, you definitely don't want to. Into green-purple, I prefer to go wider. Rhino is not easy for them to remove, but to be honest with you, they can use Crab effectively. And it's also to do with, I don't want my board to, by turn 2 for my aggro deck, to progress by 1 character. So if I've played Rhino and shifted it, I've only got 1 character and he quests for 2, or he can sing. And if he's singing, he hasn't done any questing. So sometimes I'd like to just set up more characters, get wider, just get more obnoxious with the board if I can. Bearing in mind when I say that, I do not want to comment saying that I don't think Rhino shift on 2 is good. If it's like the most optimal thing to do, please do it. And of course, if you have a Zeus and you want to get out of your hand, you can shift on 2 and sing the Zeus. But keep in mind that you are an aggressive deck. You want to aggressively get lore. And you also want to be this, like, because of the way this one is designed with the Zeuses, you want to be a real strong beatdown deck as well. And make sure that they don't have much on the board. So when you play your Lady Piglet, they're only, they're not going to have many answers to remove it. And you're still going to have singers set up. So if you draw any more removal, you can keep singing that removal as well. So yeah, that's kind of the rundown. I think the green purple one, you kind of want to be a bit of a beatdown. You want to get some characters out early and go wide. It is a deck without red or steel removal, so their removal is fairly awkward. They're very lucky to have wrong lever, but then hard casting that on some of your characters is probably game losing. If they have the hard cast wrong lever on Piglet, and I said they have to because it's not a song, that's just rough. If they miss their Elsa, it's rough. They're going to Peter Pan maybe your Piglet, and then you can try and remove it with Let the Storm. And keep in mind with well versus this deck is a deck you can sort of build up a board and full quest with everything. Don't just every turn play a character quest if they've got an easy trade on their side. Set up maybe 3 characters and maybe they've only got 1 that could take out some of your characters. Full quest then, and then ask them to respond to more than 1 thing, and they can't do that with the options they have. But keeping in mind about saying I don't think Rhino shift on 2 is always the best play. Going into Amberstill aggro, no, Amberstill wheel, and slightly touching on the mirror as well. Yes, in this matchup, I think Rhino Shift is like probably the most important thing you can do. If you're on the plane, you can get Rhino shifted. If you can get him shifting and singing a song, it's pretty much going to win you the game on the spot. You've established a 4-3. You've removed anything that they have to get into the game. You know, if you take out a Cindy and Ursula, or Robin Hood or whatever, you know, singing Let the Storm or singing Zeus on their 2 drops, like if they play Troubadour or Ursula, you pretty much locked in that this Rhino is going to be sticking around for a little bit. You know, they don't really have much to challenge on the board, and they are going to want to be singing Removal at you as well. So definitely in that matchup, it is very important to get it. But of course, with this build, you've got this fallback of playing the Ursula on 2. And sometimes, especially into this, if they open a Cindy and I'm on the draw, I will not play my Cinderella turn 1. I will just ink and pass because, you know, I want them to have that Let the Storm in the hand. I want them to have that sort of brick and not really give them targets, and then remove the singers that could sing it effectively, and you can kind of force them into a position where Let the Storm is actually just a brick in their hand, and if they hard cast it on 3 to draw a card, you're probably going to win that game because you are the aggro deck and all they've done is 2 damage and drawn a card. Let the Storm is a very powerful card, but when you just the only really thing you have to do with it is hardcast it and play it, feels horrible. And that's why that Storm really never appears in any other list besides Amber Steel, because Cindy singing it is busted. Anything else feels fairly fair. Like sometimes you have to get your Pete to sing it, or maybe your Ursula to sing it, but you know, if Purple Steel was singing Let the Storm, it just feels like from a Pete or a White Rose, it feels like a fair play, really. Looking at this hand, to be honest with you, I would say if this was blind, I would just full keep. You got some ink, you've got singers to set up, and then you've got something to fill the hand again. Of course, it could still be fairly rough if we don't draw anything good for 3 and 4. And in this, for some reason, has not let me mulligan this one, so I have to click new game. But yeah, I think you could end up keeping this, maybe send back some of the Inkables. Maybe I kind of want the dock of them on the play because then I can do, you know, ramp out. If I had a 3-drop in here, like a lady, that would be great, and I could keep inking, and maybe like worst case scenario I set the lady and play the dock out, but maybe I'll get a lady and a piglet and a Smee, and these 2 songs with these 2 singers will just lock my opponent out from playing much of the game, to be honest with you. But it's asked me to do a new hand. So in the mirror, I think I would send back most of this stuff. I'm looking for the 1-drop. I kind of need to be a bit more aggressive on that, and if I'm keeping the singer, I kind of need to be a bit more aggressive on finding the songs as well, otherwise she's fairly a dead card. And the reason why we use the Ursula over the Troubadour is because you can run it into things and heal for Rapunzel for a lot more value, and that 1 card draw that you get because you don't have resist can be very, very important for the deck. So we send it back, and yeah, not too bad a hand. I think you'd start off with maybe if it's going into a mirror, you know, you'd want to use this Lawrence, but you probably won't be able to, is ink the Lawrence, play the Rhino 1-drop out, put the fear in them that you have the shift line. Even if they Cindy Storm it, I feel like it's not too bad. You get the Ursula out, you can sing removal on their 2-drop, get to a Pete, you know, and then hopefully be able to go wide. This might even be an option where you have to ink the Piglet because this matchup he's very much not going to be surviving. But what I like about Piglet is he does mean the Smee doesn't take any damage, so hopefully we get a turn where we could play the Piglet and a 1-drop, or, you know, Piglet and a dock or something like that. So I kind of maybe would have a bit more hope for the Piglet and go 1, 2, 3, and then maybe do Smee and Piglet if, you know, the inks off the top are very much in our favor. And of course, if we top deck the Rhino shift, we definitely just ink that and play that out and start winning the board that way. But if we were on the draw, I think even there, it's not far off being a full keep hand. I think what I would do, I mean, honestly, yeah, okay, I could say a scenario here where you just full keep this. Hunting for Dock and Rapunzel on the draw is not too bad. The 1 extra card generally is enough for you to have a decent amount of gas. You start the turn, draw your cards, see what you want to ink. If they play a Cindy turn 1, you play a Daisy. And then the next turn, you want to play Cindy and the Daisy. And it will just kind of make a very awkward board state for them. They'll probably answer this Cinderella, but, you know, fair enough. You've got some couple turns of questing with the Daisies. And I think, to be honest with you, the only thing that would worry me a bit here is I'd like to draw into a 3-drop, maybe a Pete. Maybe don't need this Rhino for now. But yeah, I could see maybe keeping a hand like this, send these back, and still not the worst hand in the world. If they miss that Cindy turn 1, you know, you can get your Cindy turn 1 down, or you can go ink this, play their Daisy, and then there could be another scenario as well where you ink whatever you draw, ink this Strength, play the Daisy turn 1, turn 2, play a Rhino and a Cindy. And what that kind of does is create the scenario where, okay, I've got one singer that can let the storm. This is saying if they apparently went Cinderella turn 1 into a Smee turn 2, you're playing a Rhino and a Cindy, and you could say, right, what are you more afraid of? I don't have the Rhino shift in hand right now, but are you more afraid of Cindy singing a song or me shifting Rhino and that doing something? And I've obviously put this Rhino on the board for something, so sometimes you can play these little mind games with people, and also they can only remove one thing. So yeah, that's just another fun way to do it. But I find the mirror and the sort of amber steel matchups the hardest. Here is a bit rough. I think I would send all of these back, maybe just keep the Pete, because stopping them from doing the wheel early on is pretty good. You want to resource them down, maybe get to a point where they have to hardcast the wheel. I would keep maybe these two, and yeah, it's not too bad. You've at least got a curve there, so you do 1, 2, and then I think I would actually Pete lock until I find some removal to throw on the board and throw this out. And because it's amber steel, maybe this Piglet can go, and there's 4 in the deck, so you should be fine to be inking Piglets. And yeah, into steel matchups it doesn't shine too much. I do like to keep it around to try and get some value out of it, but if I can't, I can't. So you could do 1, 2, and then Pete, maybe play a Rhino if the board is more appropriate to play the Rhino instead of another Pete. But getting three singers on the board and a Smee to quest is awesome. And also you can sit there just questing with the Smee. If they've played out singers, they're probably not going to run their singers in, and then maybe if you top deck a Rapunzel, you could heal off it. If they've gone Cinderella, Ursula into Ariel, they're only going to be able to hit that Smee when they're at 4 ink, because that means they can Rapunzel heal it as well. But you get some turns early questing, you Pete lock them so they can't answer it, you get some lore, you're setting up for a Rapunzel. It's all good stuff. It's all thinking about those little sort of variables. We're working with such a small amount in this deck. It's probably, you're going to on average see between 15 and 20 cards of the deck. So yeah, it's you're not saying too much, that you've got to work with small amounts. And the thing that I like saying with aggressive aggro decks, and something that Justin, the Kiwibird creator, said, with a control deck you make 50 decisions, you make tons, and there is a point where if you visions and take the wrong song, or you ramp and ink the wrong card, it's fine. You've got some get back in the game cards. You've got a lot of ways back into the game. You can B prep the entire board, you can Sisu, you can just throw big bodies, you can do whatever you want, and there is less opportunities to mess up because you've got so many opportunities, whereas with aggressive deck you only on average will be making probably 15 decisions as well, and every decision has to be 100% correct, otherwise you're going to be so behind. Of course, on the surface level, sometimes that decision looks like just play a few daisies and turn them sideways, but winning those really hard matchups is what is the hardest part of it. When you've got just a bad hand, I had a game the other day where I had no 1-drop or 2-drop. My hand was just 3 Petes and songs. On the surface, that looks terrible. But, we set the Petes up. We singed all the removal. We found a dock later on because we let the game go on long enough. And we just went wide and managed to win that in the end. But yeah, that was just a little rambling excerpt about my opinions on aggressive style decks, which I've always had a soft spot for. I think it's a good part of the meta to have aggro decks in the game. But the next matchup is Blurple, and it's matchup sort of I tend to play quite a bit because I have both of them built. I support both of those decks, and to be honest with you, the reason why I swapped the Blurple was I was on Amber Still aggro, and the person I was practicing against, Fumbles, was just beating me very consistently, and it just feels like the results aren't that good into Blurple. I think you have to be playing very optimally and very high roll to win that matchup. You need to remember the things that they can do. So, they'll use Bell to move damage over, they use Elsa to exert and take out your things, and you have to remember that going wide is very awkward for them. They don't have many answers of it. So if you're able to, double or triple spell, play dock and go wide, they tend to lose if you're able to get a good dock play off and then go wide, and if you draw another dock, it's pretty much lights out for them. They won't be able to interact with your singers. You have to also remember another thing that Blurple really struggles against in the Amber Steel wheel matchups is that they get to go wide with singing Whole New World and then playing a lot of characters, but it's also that they don't really have much interaction with the singers, and Ursula is quite brutal to them because you can sing Zeus to play Lady, play a Piglet, you know, Zeus their Bell or whatever, and just get a full quest in. Then they play a Genie. If you find a Strength, you can take that out. And then the next turn, you know, they can Elsa Exert and take out the one Piglet, but everything else survives. The matchup, if it goes on long enough, of course, they can use Bell to move the damage over. But if every turn you're playing more threats than they are answering, you just end up being the one that wins. But yeah, I'd say Blurple is still fairly 50-50 matchup. I think when you're going first and they miss that Bell, and you get 3 turns of just pure lore pressure, and they haven't got anything because, you know, they're inked, ramped, then they've played a 4-drop, and then they're 1 turn behind for the L, so you win. But on the play, you know, unless you set up like a max amount of daisies or something, you're in just a fairly rough spot. If you were to just go, you know, 1-drop into Smee, into Lady or whatever, you know, they'll Genie hit, then use Bell, move the damage over, or play Elsa and move and take 2 things off the board, and you're just getting resourced out, and you didn't get any lore from the characters that you played. So that's the roughest spot. But again, I think what I've been opting to do a bit more is make sure I have this Ursula set up, because her singing these 2 songs can probably win you the game. I kind of want to get Daisy turn 1. I want to get Ursula turn 2. I want to sing some removal, and then I want to go wide with like Lady into more stuff, into a dock, into just loads of small critters that quest for 1, and just going wide with them as much as I can. It's rare I'm going to get Rapunzel value unless they use, like, say, Bell to trade things in. But even at that point, I'm going to have to use Rapunzel to be the one to hit it, then heal off a Rapunzel. There are some interesting plays you can do of Rhino where you could, like, say, minus. If you had 5 ink, but then getting to 5 ink is pretty rough, you could minus, say, a Goat or a Bell and then run a Daisy in and then get Rapunzel to heal. But to be honest with you, taking that turn off to draw 3 cards always feels like the losing play. So I feel like Rapunzel isn't too important in that matchup. But yeah, I think I've always found, especially with this build, is getting the Rapunzel or the Ursula down on 2, just so you can start throwing out removal, going wide, and getting very lucky on a dock to draw more cards. So from here, I think what I would keep, it's kind of not too bad to keep the 1-drops. Because you basically just don't want to draw them in the later turns. It'd be nice to keep the Strength if I had something to sing with it, but right now I'm going to go like that and see what happens. And yeah, that's not too bad. We get the Rhino down turn 1. We ink a Rhino and we play a Rhino, and the reason why we keep the 1-drops is because we want to just make sure that when we top decking, we're not top decking that many 1-drops. So we keep them early and we ink them. So later on, you know, we're top decking Smees, Rapunzels, Rhinos, like big questers. So we ink that, we play that. I think if they actually, you know, I think there's no other really effective time to establish this Rhino. So we'd shift the Rhino on 2, and thus the same thing as why I'm suggesting you get the Ursula down. You now have a singer for Zeus and Strength. So top decking those songs doesn't feel as bad. Then ink the Pete Lady into Smee, and then hopefully be able to dock and go wide and just create too many threats for them to answer. They have very effective answers, I think, in my opinion. That's why one of the reasons why I was playing the deck. Bell moving damage is great. You establish a 2-quester and you remove something off the board. Elsa exerting, you know, kind of pairs very well with that Bell. Genie running into Smee, having that 4 health is huge, and it attacks for 2, so it takes Piglets, Ladies, it takes so much off the board. That's really amazing as well. And then later on in the game, you know, they can Hades you, because you having a lot of ink doesn't matter too much. If the only time it will matter if you top deck dock and play everything and maybe present a board winning state, but besides that, yeah, you don't get too many good spots there. So yeah, and for myself, if you're doing this on the draw now, I think it's close to being a full keep here, to be honest, in my opinion. Maybe send this Rapunzel back. Yeah, maybe just send this Rapunzel back. There's a world where I send, no, I don't think there's a world where I send this Daisy back. Yeah, and that's not too bad. We draw for turn, we ink this. I think I think I want the Daisy down, then I'm just going to keep questing with it. Ink this, play the Ursula, and now we have our singer set up to sing removal out. Maybe if they TPO because they're going to get a Fox down, you can get rid of that with the Let the Storm Rage on. And then depending on what we draw, we get a good enough 2-drop. We can play the Lady and go wider. I think on the draw versus Blurple, Lady isn't as good because the turn you play it, they will be, you know, very close to just Elsa Exert and take out whatever you play anyway. So Lawrence is a lot better. If they don't have a TPO on the board, like, what are they going to do? Run a Genie into it to pop it and then hit it with an Elsa? They can do it the other way around and the Elsa doesn't die. But it's still, like, just feels horribly rough. I think Lawrence is just a very effective board on the body on the board when you're playing against things that aren't steel, but they can still answer it. I just find it's a bit more awkward than play lady, play piglet. They also exert the I think they also exert the lady in that scenario, unless you have an Ursula set up, because you kind of also want to make sure they try and remove your singers. If they don't remove your singers, you're in a better spot. But they can just Elsa exert and take out, these 2 health things. And on the draw, it's a lot rougher. So sometimes establishing things like Daisy, it's just awkward for them to remove. The thing they want to use to remove it is the body of, like, say, Belle, because she's a 4/4. But, they also want to get some value out of that Belle before they do that. And if you've got Singer set up, you can remove it so the Daisy can keep questing. So, yeah, just getting awkward bodies wide is pretty good. So I'd say it's fairly decent hand on the draw. If we top deck another Daisy, maybe Lady Daisy, we're in a really good spot. Find 1 dock and we've probably won the game. So, yeah, that's not too bad. And the last one is Purple Steel. I think that's probably... Purple Steel always feels like one of the killers of Amber Steel aggro, mainly because, you have a bit of a rumble and then they'll be able to just do what Amethyst does and just draw some cards. And I think in this scenario, setting up the singers is just very, very important. So from here, what I'd keep if I was on the play is probably send these back. I'd like to keep these. I'd like to try and do something with these, but I kind of want to play an effective game, and I'd like to keep these 2 uninkables as well. And again, we keep the 1-drops because we can ink the 1-drops. And that's a funny hand. But that's also quite interesting. I find Daisy to be quite a bad card in this matchup because, they're pretty much going to always draw off it into Purple Steel. But I guess in this scenario, we'd have to ink the Cinderella, play her out, double Daisy on 2. Hopefully Single-let the Storm on this and get a good hit on, one of their 1-drops that they play. Then we can Pete and maybe Doc. And I say they're quite bad, but it's still a 1/4 on the body. It's 1/4 on the board. If they ever turn any of their like 3/3s, like their Pete's, White Roses, or whatever they play, you can run it in and Rapunzel heal. So it has those effective things, and also as well, it is representing 4 lore on the board. They probably, if you're not questing of it, and also they'll take the card draw, they probably won't touch it for a long time. So maybe you rumble for a little bit, you get to say 12 lore, you quested both of these, you're at 16, and then you just play some more stuff on the board and go, now deal with all of this. I don't think you can. So yeah, I would say I wouldn't want the 2 daisies in the hand, but there's still a way you can win with that. And again, on the draw, maybe I say keep the 1-drops, but only if they're inkable. No, because you can't ink a daisy, so stopping yourself from top decking a daisy is not great. I'd maybe just look at keeping these. I think looking for more cards might end up being a thing that beats the deck for you. So yeah, you go ink Cinderella, play it, play a Smee, get the Lawrence set up, and sing their strength on any target you want. Most likely they're 2-drop. I think there's a world where you could triple 1-drop and sing the strength early to get rid of their 2-drop, but I don't know if I'd want to do that unless I had a dock in hand. So the hands in the game sort of always really play out differently depending on your hand. The only real strength you have in this game with this deck is with the Mulligan. So here again, like on the play, I think probably send maybe these back. Maybe consider, keep this one. And that was the point I was going to try and make, is you want this Rhino Shift. Of course, you really want this Rhino Shift. But if they were to fire the cannons you'd just play the Ursula instead, and you're still doing something on turn 2. I think that's the same on the play or on the draw. Maybe on the play, you'd keep one of these Rapunzels to try to get some value. But also as well, as much as I mentioned about ink the 1-drops, I think keeping the Ursulas is pretty good for ink as well, because her as a top deck is just pretty bad as well. Like, she's not later on in the game, you just want to be top decking big questers, maybe like very effective bodies. As a 1/4 that quests for 1, and maybe you're in top deck mode, so you don't have any songs to sing as well. She's pretty rough. So maybe I'd look at keeping something like that. And there you go, fit into a fairly good hand, ink that, play that out. Hopefully if we draw a 3-drop, we can ink this, play this, but if not, we would play this on turn 3 just to put a body on the board. And it pairs well with these Rapunzels, so that we can run it in, get some Rapunzel value, heal, and just keep the game going on. We don't draw as effectively as Amethyst does. They've got all the one drops are cantrips. They've got Genie, they've got Friends. They've just got so many ways to draw cards. So we really need to maximize Rapunzel and Dock value, because if we go into a stalemate where it's just top deck play, they're going to win because they're just going to go wider and bigger. And then like with these Yensid Broom versions, like I think that's a pretty good matchup, but they can sometimes just out resource you. So that can be rough as well. But yeah, it's mainly in that matchup I want to just get a beat down of just singing removal, get nothing on their board, get such a big lore lead that I don't have to worry too much about this game going on for very long because I'm going to win early. But yeah, it really is, I think, a lot of the time as well is just looking at the hand and sort of thinking what's the most optimal way I can play this. So there as well, if I was playing blind, I maybe want to just keep a Rapunzel in case I need to get some Rapunzel value at some point. But something like that is good. I think Daisy is too much of a brick to keep, so if this was a matchup where I'd need the Daisy, that'd be pretty good. Like this was Ruby Sapphire or Ruby Amethyst, but there's so many matchups where you don't need it and it can just be a very awkward keep. I kind of want to keep the Rapunzel here, but also I don't know. There's no 2-drops in this hand right now, so if I'm missing turn 2, that can be kind of rough as well. So I think we'd try something like that. Ends up being a fairly awkward hand, but maybe I would, if I was going blind, ink the Rhino, and yeah, ink the Rhino, play the Cinderella out, hopefully get some Let the Storm value, and if not, just a Daisy on turn 2 is what it's going to have to be. But then getting out the Pete, locking them out, singing Strength. Even if I hardcast a Long Came Zeus and I've got like an effective board of say 6 lore, I'm fine with that. That ends up being a fine turn in my opinion. You remove something, you quest for 6, and they have to build up a board again to start removing your stuff. So yeah, it's sometimes just playing out these hands. Of course, running for a Long Came Zeus can sometimes be a bit tricky, but you kind of have to take those games. Maybe don't be too aggressive on your mulligans. If the hand looks fairly playable, just play it out. I think sometimes in matchups with Ambersteel Aggro and the Mirror, I do tend to go for the best hand I can because I just lose if they Rhino shift on 2 and I've played Cindy on turn 1. I feel like I lose that matchup. But I'd say as well, this is one of those decks where if you're going second, so your opponent has to tell you what they mulligan first, really do listen to what they've said. If they've kept, say, 6 and it's Ambersteel like Wheel or Ambersteel Aggro, they've got like Rhino shift in hand, or they've got like an amazing hand. So you have to really think about that, especially into the discard matchups. Like if they mulligan 2, it's like you're going to get Diablo Ursula on 2, so like maybe mulligan for multiple songs in hand, or maybe just go for an aggressive route because you're like, I can't deal with whatever they're going to throw at me. But when you're on the draw, really use that information that they give you when they tell you how many they send back. Same with Blurple, you can usually tell if they've got Bell turn 1 because they'll keep a large majority of the hand, and then they need to keep ramp. So if they say keep 4 or something like that, it's like, well, there's Bell, Pawp and ramp in that hand, and they're probably just looking for an Elsa and a Bell. So really use that information on the draw. It's every little percent counts. As I say, the games won't be on too long. You don't have that many opportunities to swing things back in your favor if you're going to lose the matchup. So generally every little detail counts. We're not a big control deck. We can't make the game go on for long and like have a million decisions. We have to win quite early. So stomping them out early, trying to play the most effective opening hand as you can. If you go down to 1 card in hand, that's fine. You might have to play top deck mode, but using the information of getting those 1-drops inked early on, hopefully you're not just top decking dead draws at that point. Your percentage chance to top deck something good is higher. That's really all the little details on it. Hopefully you have a good time if you want to play it. I think it generally is a list where you just play the deck out maybe at locals quite a few times and just really feel it out. I think Ambersteel Aggro, and I think Ambersteel Wheel is a bit more complex, but Ambersteel Aggro as well. Like the color combo has the hardest mulligan in the game in my opinion, because if you're a ramp deck, you just hunt for ramp. If you're a Diablo deck, you tend to just hunt for Diablo. Ruby Amethyst, you tend to just look for a good curve. This one, you're looking for combinations of if I have the song, I need the singer. If I have the shift, I need the 1-drop. I need to get the card draw working because the card draw is actually fairly thin, even though Doc's quite cool. So yeah, I find this color combo has the hardest mulligans in the game. But hopefully some of those little tips helped.